Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I know a lot of you grew up in Super Nintendo households back in the 90s. That's for those of you who grew up in the 90s. If you're someone who grew up in the era of the Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, in most cases, unless your parents had a good amount of money, you woke up with either one of these consoles. Rarely did you ever wake up with both, and even if you did wake up with both of these consoles, odds are you were more preferential to one over the other. So in my house, we were definitely a Sega household, and there are some Sega Genesis games that I have in my collection. Honestly, 80% of the reason why I have them is purely for nostalgia. And it's Saturday morning. I'm getting ready to hit the gym. I like to hit the gym on Saturday mornings, but also, Saturdays are just a really good day to get some gaming in. Now, we're supposed to be getting hit with some bad weather, so I think I'm going to move my Saturday morning gaming to like maybe middle of the day Saturday gaming, maybe Saturday afternoon gaming. And I kind of want to get a little nostalgic today, so I figured I'd show you some of the Sega Genesis games that we played back in the 90s, in the early mid 90s, games that still hold up today. Some of these games are a ton of fun, and if you happen to have a Sega Genesis, I recommend you trying them out. A lot of them are on the Sega Genesis Mini, whether it be the Sega Genesis Mini 1 or 2. And then worst case scenario, if you don't have any of these physical games, emulate, right? Emulate. That's always an option for you. Let's get it kicked off. One of my all-time faves. You've got the Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. This game was sick. It's not really a Metroidvania, so to speak, nor is it a side scroller. It's pretty much where you play like three different variations of the same level. But the big, selling factor, the big thing with this game was just the fact that you could do Michael Jackson's moves. Throughout the game, you were able to get like these different power-ups, and if you saved all your power-ups to all the way to like the max, it allowed you to do like the Michael Jackson's like longest dance routine. And what happens is that when you actually unleash your dance routine, all of the enemies that are on the level with you, they all join in and dance with you. The only thing is that when the dance is over, Michael's the only one standing. So I was a huge Michael Jackson fan growing up. Look, as you can see, look, you see MJ just killing it right there, killing it, and then all the bad guys are just dancing with you. Michael Jackson Moonwalker was just, I mean, first of all, if you forget the game, if you've never had a chance to see the actual movie, this video game is based on an actual movie. Where it's kind of like it's like a compilation of MJ's greatest hits within the movie, but he kind of makes it almost cinematic in a way. So he takes you through different phases, and the whole time you're really just trying to save Annie. So this is like it was a really great movie. Honestly, if you've got some time today, go watch Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. It's just sick. I mean, when you consider like the time period when they were doing this stuff, Michael Jackson just took music videos to a whole new level. Like if you think like a lot of the music videos today that we see are just rinse and repeat, especially with certain genres. You see the same features, the same things. Michael Jackson was truly creative, and he just made some really awesome and cinematic stuff. And so I figured I'd kick it off with this one because Moonwalker was one that we definitely played a ton of. Definitely a cool game. Like I said, if you can't play it physically, definitely go out there and emulate it. It's a fun one. This one doesn't need a lot of talking at all. This is Streets of Rage, the original. And it's funny because, Streets of Rage 1 is definitely a classic. And even though it's not in my top 5 beat 'em ups of all time, it still is a classic. I mean, this is really what we got before Streets of Rage 2. The only thing is that Streets of Rage 2 took everything we saw in Streets of Rage 1 and just amped it up to a whole new level. The one thing that I was always curious about with Streets of Rage 2 is why they removed the feature that allows you to call like backup. Because in Streets of Rage 1, you didn't have special moves like how you do in Streets of Rage 2. In Streets of Rage 2, obviously every character has like a special move that they could do. And you basically get the opportunity to do the special move once, and then you have to give like 5 to 10 seconds, let it charge up again, and you can do the special move again without it taking any of your energy. Well, you didn't have that in Streets of Rage 1. All you had were your basic attacks, like your punch and your kick and your jump. And then if you wanted to do something special, you push the C button, and that called for backup, which is basically like a police car. A guy pops out the sunroof, fires a rocket launcher, and it basically burns all your enemies on the ground. It's amazing that neither Axel, Adam, or Blaze got burnt by that fire. That's neither here nor there. Um, I'm just wondering why they didn't include that feature in Streets of Rage 2. I think that would have been really cool if you still had that, and you still got your special moves. But maybe they thought that it would have just made the game a little bit too easy. Maybe they thought that the characters would have been too overpowered if they had their special moves and they could call massive backup. So either way, Streets of Rage 1 is just a classic. Still not in my top 5, but definitely top 25 beat 'em ups of all time, probably. This is definitely one we had a ton of fun with. The music is off the charts. Can't beat that music. It's classic even to this day. So this is definitely one that we played a ton of. Worth spending some time playing on a Saturday. Here's another one. Spider-Man versus Kingpin. This one, this is one of the, believe it or not, this is one of the darkest feeling Spider-Man games I've ever played. There's just something so dark and so solemn about this Spider-Man that I don't get it. I think in large part, it's the music, you know, that very low rhythmic, like that low vibration bass that you have in every level, you know, that do 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 do. It's just something about that. I don't know. It always stuck with me as a kid playing through this one. But it's very solemn. It's very, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. There's something about this Spider-Man verse, but it draws you in. I think one of the coolest aspects about this one is that Peter can always go back to his house. You can always go back home and rest and let your energy charge back up. You can get money, right, for all the photos that you take throughout the levels. I always thought that was a cool feature. And then you could take some of that money and buy web fluid. So, I mean, this was a very cool one, a classic. Unfortunately, this one's not 2-player, so I spent a lot of time watching my brother play this one. But this is definitely a cool one. So, one that's worth a shot on a Saturday morning. This next one needs no introduction. Ghouls and Ghosts. I mean, there's many ways that you can play Ghouls and Ghosts. I mean, there's tons of ways. You got Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo, Ghouls and Ghosts on the Game Boy Advance. You've got Ghouls and Ghosts on the PSP. You got Ghouls and Ghosts everywhere. There's all kinds of ways you can play Ghouls and Ghosts, but none feel as close to the arcade. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one of you guys will let me know down in the comments. Do you think that this is the closest to the arcade original? Do you feel that way? Or do you feel this is the purest way to play Ghouls and Ghosts? Or is there another way that's even more pure than the original 16-bit Sega Genesis version? Love this game. Hard as nails, especially that second level for some reason. The second level is harder than the third, in my opinion. I don't know why. But you guys let me know what you think about this one. I think that this is a classic. This is definitely a Saturday morning classic for sure. And don't let it snow or rain. If it's one of those days where you can't go outside because the weather sucks, you were playing this for like half the day. Easily. Ghouls and Ghosts is definitely up there. Another classic, Altered Beast, Rise from Your Grave. What else can I say about this one? I mean, man, this one, I feel like this one probably had one of the bigger impacts on my childhood. Because I remember when my brother initially got rid of the Nintendo that we had, because we had an NES back in the day. And I remember when he got rid of the NES and finally upgraded to the Sega Genesis. He traded and he came home with this, and he came home with Altered Beast. The characters in this game scared me to death. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Especially that first boss. Oh man. Welcome to your doom. I mean, that thing kept me up half the night. I mean, I had to sleep with the covers over my head, for real. Because, I mean, Altered Beast was a scary game as a kid in the 90s. I mean, try being 6 years old, 5 years old, and seeing this thing. I mean, it was scary. Even the cover was scary. I remember thinking, man, I'm so glad this guy is the good guy. Because if he was the bad guy, it'd be really scary. But Altered Beast is a classic, man. I felt like we played this game more in the evening / nighttime than we did during the day, to be honest, on a Saturday. But this is still a Saturday classic, one worth checking out. Here Goes One, a lighter feeling game. This was one when you wanted to kind of step away from all the darkness and the grimness and the gloominess. Sonic always breathed a breath of fresh air on a Saturday, just listening to that classic music from the first level. the rings, the speed, the colors, the sounds. I mean, Sonic is just a classic, man. Saturday morning for sure. Didn't spend a ton of time playing this one, especially this one, because this was the one-player version. But what we did spend more time playing was Sonic 2 instantly, because obviously, even though Tails was kind of like a sidebar character, at least it made me feel like I was able to play with my brother, even though he was like going full, full blast, flying across the screen, barely could keep up. But Sonic 2 did have it made you feel like it was two-player, even though even though it wasn't. So definitely an interesting game. Definitely a Saturday morning classic. One worth checking out. And those honestly were the Saturday morning classics that we enjoyed, we thoroughly appreciated. There's a ton more that I could bring out. I mean, I'm going through my Sega Genesis stack right now. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff. And to be quite honest with you, growing up, a lot of the Sega Genesis games we had were the ones with the black spine. My cousins were the one who had all the Sega Genesis games with the red spine. These were the money games. These are the games that we just knew were way too expensive for us. We weren't even trying to get into those back in the day. But let me know what you guys think. What was your Saturday morning routine as a kid, whether it be back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back in the 2000s, the 2010s, whether it was Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, or Gen 6, or even Gen 7? Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.